I was wrong, and I actually do uphold these social norms that are important to all of us.
Awesome. Final question about this book, and congratulations again. Very awesome.
Go through the mail, and somebody at the company might look at it, and that's all that ever happened. He didn't address that. And so you have to understand, why are people going to be mad? And then you have to figure out, do I agree with them or not?
Professor Josh Bentley, welcome to the Market of Influence.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
And congratulations on your new book.
Devaluing Public Apologies in the Age of Social Media.
Wow, he reads faster than I do. Awesome, very good. In marketing, advertising, PR, we hear a lot of times about brands or CEOs or celebrities getting in trouble, saying the wrong thing, doing the wrong thing, and having to apologize for it. Tell me a little bit about the art of the apology.
Sure. So apologies are a way to avoid conflict, resolve conflict peacefully, for companies to repair their reputation, to repair relationships with key stakeholders. But they only work if you do them the right way. And what we know from research is a lot of apologies come across as insincere. A lot of apologies are for the wrong thing or to the wrong audience. And so you really have to understand why people are mad at you before you try to apologize, or you're going to make it worse.
So I'll bet you if I ask my listeners to name 5 famous apologies, they could probably name 10. What is one apology that you spoke about in the book that you think would be a great case study?
So an interesting case study that people will remember is the 2022 Oscars, when Will Smith slapped Chris Rock. Woo. And then he got up, he won the Best Actor award that year, and he got up and he apologized to the Academy of Motion Pictures, he apologized to his fellow nominees, and he never apologized to Chris Rock.
And how did that go?
Well, people were pretty polarized. There were people who were defending him on social media saying, hey, Chris Rock made a joke about Will Smith's wife, that's crossing the line, he should have stuck up for his wife, he did the right thing. But there was a bigger group saying, it's not okay to punch people in public over a joke that they made, and obviously you weren't sorry because you didn't even apologize to the person that you hit. And so he put out another apology, and then later, a few months, he put another video out sort of apologizing. And you see this sometimes, if you don't get the first apology right, there's sort of this cascade of apologies, and it just keeps the negative news cycle going and going.
So when you think about relationship and reputation management, let's talk about the first apology. What do you think Will Smith missed in his first apology?
He missed the thing that was most offensive about what he did. It's a little bit offensive to disrupt the Academy's ceremony or to take away from the other nominees. But the most offensive thing is to physically commit a battery against someone. Yeah, and so he didn't address that. And so you have to understand, why are people going to be mad? And then you have to figure out, do I agree with them or not?
So ultimately, reputational damage comes when there is a behavior that is inconsistent with the expectation of your stakeholders.
Society needs certain norms to function. We all have things that we assume we can count on each other to do or not do. And when somebody violates those norms, they have said, at least in a small way, I'm antisocial. I don't agree with the norms of society. But usually we really do agree with those norms. We just made a mistake. We did something wrong for who knows what reason. And the function of the apology is to say, I recognize that I was wrong. You think I was wrong. You're right. I was wrong. And I actually do uphold these social norms that are important to all of us.
So it's about taking responsibility and focusing on the violation of expectation. All right, lesson number 1, we're learning already. All right, let's talk about CEOs. It's kind of a big deal, whether you're the CEO of a major company or you are a politician, whenever you're the head of an organization, whatever mistake you made is going to have consequences that are much bigger, right? Let's talk about some examples that involve this kind of leadership.
Well, people will remember in 2013, Target had a big data breach. They didn't plan on that. No one at Target said, hey, let's have a data breach and let's have all of our red card holders' data get out there. But they lost trust because people assume if they have a Target credit card, Target's going to keep that safe, and they failed that way. So their CEO had to put out a statement that expressed how much they cared about their customers' privacy, all the steps they were going to take to prevent this from happening again, and say, we sincerely apologize for this, because people want to know that they also feel bad about it. And that was very costly for Target, but that's basically the right way to handle it once you've had a problem like that. On the other hand, some people may remember in 2023, Google launched its Gemini AI system.
I remember that.
Okay. And one of the features was that it would generate images. And people started playing around with it and discovered that it basically wouldn't make white people. Even when you asked it to make a picture of a Nazi or a Viking or something that's obviously white. And so people started to think there's some kind of woke culture at Google that's caused them to program their AI in this way. And so there was some outrage. And Google came back and said, you know, the AI, we missed the mark on this. We're sorry it didn't work as well as we wanted it to. Mm-hmm. And that's a very ambiguous apology that doesn't really address how did this happen, what went wrong. They kind of tried to make it sound like the AI did this on its own, which AI doesn't do. And so it really did nothing to placate the people that thought that Google's culture was sort of polarized or political or something. They didn't address it head on, and so it didn't work.
Well, in your book, you actually address the topic of polarization. Our society is so polarized, right? You know, the Jets and the Giants, Chevy and Ford, we're not going to get into politics. How has polarization in our society affected the apology? And how is it different than previous decades?
Sure. There's not enough common ground anymore in our society where you can say, think about someone like Richard Nixon, who resigned from the presidency in the 70s because he was going to get impeached for covering up the break-in at the Watergate Hotel. And there are scholars who have analyzed that situation and said he was going to have over 300 members of Congress vote to impeach him and probably 70 senators vote to convict him. You know, it wasn't going to be a 50-50 split between the parties because everybody knew that was wrong. But then you see that in the 90s, when Bill Clinton had his scandal with Monica Lewinsky, he was able to do kind of a pseudo-apology and get away with it because now the polarization has increased and Democrats were going to be loyal to him and there weren't enough Republicans and they weren't going to get together on anything. And then if you fast forward another 20 years, you see Donald Trump, who got impeached a couple of times. But in both cases, there's no apology. There's no admission of any mistakes at all because he understood, I think, that the polarization was so high that people on his side would stand up for him no matter what, and people on the other side would never forgive him. They would never be satisfied. And so extreme polarization kind of makes apologies pointless because all they do is give ammunition to your enemies.
That's a really interesting point. One other thing that really changed over the last 25 years is social media. Suddenly the audience is not just a spectator of the apology, they're active participants in it. Can you speak about that?
Well, one of the things that we used to do if we had a bad experience with a company is write a complaint letter. And it would go through the mail and somebody at the company might look at it and that's all ever happened. They might send you a coupon or they might send you an apology, but it was one-to-one at best. Now, of course, if you have a bad experience with a company, you're going to post a video about it or you're going to post a message about it, and suddenly millions of people can instantly know what you're unhappy about. And some of those people might have had similar experiences, so they'll jump on that bandwagon and be like, yeah, I hate the self-checkout line at this store, or I hate whatever. And now it builds and builds and builds. And one of the things it does is it creates an impression for brands that there's this huge groundswell of anger. And sometimes there is, and sometimes that's sort of a phantom of social media and the way the algorithms work. But it makes it really easy for people to express their unhappiness. Yeah. And the easiest thing a company can do in response is apologize. It's really easy to write an apology. You don't have to be face-to-face. You don't have to be publicly humiliated. All you can do is say, we're really sorry you had this bad experience. We're going to look into it. And you hope that that's going to quell the uproar. But sometimes companies don't mean it. They're just using it as a tactic to get past a bad news cycle or to, get past the bad social media hashtag that day. And people can tell. People get a sense by watching companies. If they say they're sorry, if they say they're going to change, are they going to really do it? And if they don't, they lose a lot of trust.
One really interesting topic we spoke about before was the idea of turning this need for an apology from the audience into a marketing opportunity. Can you tell us about Skittles?
So this was hilarious. DDB Chicago is the ad agency, and they won some awards in 2021. I can't remember the year exactly, but this was brilliant. In 2013, Skittles changed the flavor of green Skittles from lime to apple.
How could they?
Well, it was pretty outrageous, and there were lots of fans who were mad about the flavor change. And for years, for almost 10 years, there was always sort of this drip, drip, drip of people being like, I can't believe they got rid of lime-flavored Skittles. And so finally the company decided to go back to lime-flavored Skittles, and as a way to make a big deal about it, they hired an actor and they collected over 100,000 negative social media posts criticizing Skittles for abandoning lime. And they set up a fake press conference, and this actor basically read all of these angry tweets and said, we're sorry, we apologize, we'll do better. So they're mocking the fact that apologies have become sort of a meme, but they're also drawing attention to the fact that they're going to take responsibility for their horrible crime of getting rid of the lime flavor and go back. They put out digital billboards in Times Square with these mean tweets on a scroll. They were offering people a chance to get free Skittles. And so they recognized that apologies have become a little bit of a joke, and they capitalized on that into a great marketing campaign.
All right, awesome. Final question about this book, and congratulations again. Very awesome. When people think about apologies, they really think about crisis. How can CEOs, leaders get ready before a crisis to think about how to draft the perfect apology?
Well, the first step, I think, is for corporations or organizations to know what their real values are. The public wants to push their values onto a company and say, you violated my values. Well, if the company holds those values and they violated those values, they should definitely apologize. But if a company stands for one thing and somebody on social media stands for a different thing, there's no apology necessary. So you got to figure out what are your values, and then what are the values of your key stakeholders, not just everybody's values. You can't please everybody. What are the values of your key stakeholders? And then you should operate according to the shared values between you and your key stakeholders. If you do that, you'll never have to apologize. But of course, nobody's perfect. So once you do violate your own values and the values of your key stakeholders, you should apologize sincerely, and that should be easy because you really think you did wrong. They really think you did wrong. You're really going to make a change. And at that point, the apology should be well received because it's consistent with who you're supposed to be.
Dr. Bentley, I'm sorry, but we're almost out of time. Before we go, what is your favorite apology song?
I'm going to say Sorry by Justin Bieber.
All right, and I'm going to say Sorry Seems to Be the Hardest Word by Elton John. Thank you very much for coming in today. And for everybody, please buy a copy of this wonderful book for your kid's birthday, bar mitzvahs, graduation. This is the perfect gift, everyone. Thanks for watching.